I think Malcolm X, as is often the case, left the sect, the cult, tried to forge his own independent path, um, and he didn't have enough time and space to develop his own capacity. He, as he said himself in one of his speeches or interviews towards his death, he says, "Well, I know what these Nation of Islam guys are like because I trained them all." So he knew the nature um, of his detractors and what they were capable of. And the two organizations that Malcolm formed, the Organizations of African American Unity and the Muslim Mosque Incorporated, uh, there was a lot of fights between those two organizations, members in those two organizations. Those two organizations, especially Organization of African American Unity, didn't really get on its feet properly. I mean, the organization that really took off were the Daughters and Sons of Malcolm, quote unquote, which was the Black Panther Party, really. In a way, yeah, Malcolm had. This is a horrible thing to say in one way of it, but by Malcolm's death, Malcolm had probably performed the role that he historically was going to play positively in that radical way, which was to take the whole body politic of the African liberation, the Black liberation struggle in the U.S. from the relative, mass non-cooperation, peaceful strategy of Dr. King, etc., to one of by any means necessary, employing all tactics. I just wanted to kind of hone in on one thing with you as well, which is an ongoing theme in our dialogue and conversation and discussion and differences and critiques, is that what happened to Malcolm in the killing of Malcolm is very much, it's really important to understand the pattern of how imperialist ruling classes will manufacture and manipulate political situations, push ostensibly revolutionary forces into political places which is conducive to imperialism's own strategies. To kind of oversimplify this, they will slaughter and kill and purge and cull and kill off the more radical elements of the struggle against white supremacy, colonialism, and for socialism. And in so doing, they will bring to the fore more compromising forces in that liberation struggle who will be more conducive to imperialism's own strategies. Now, you see this everywhere. Obviously, you see this in Ireland with the GFA, etc., and all of the machinations there. You saw it in South Africa with the end of apartheid, in killing Chris Hani and Joe Slovo, and all the revolutionaries who wouldn't have accepted, perhaps, the deep compromises, which means that the same economic ruling forces under apartheid continue today in South Africa. It's just total fucking bollocks. So basically, it's culling the more radical left forces and bringing to the fore the more right wing ones, sometimes in very dramatic fashion, like what's his name, Allende's military chief, Pinochet, like Thomas Sankara's military chief, Compora, whatever his name is. But sometimes it's in more subtle ways, speaking to the Oslo Accords, speaking to the whole bullshit of the Rainbow Nation in South Africa, and so on and so forth. So going back to Malcolm X, and why was he killed at the time he was killed? Because he became very close to liberation forces globally, but he was oriented towards the radical wing of those liberation forces. So Che Guevara, although he met Castro, I think Malcolm and Che were closer than Malcolm and Fidel's politics. Malcolm became very close to Abdurrahman Babu, who's a revolutionary from Zanzibar and Tanzania, who Nyerere actually imprisoned for a while. Babu is very significant in the whole African revolution and global world revolution for socialism. Very important liberation leader. Came very close to Malcolm X. And, Malcolm was with the Algerians in this period, which was the period when they were most revolutionary before Boumediene really takes the whole thing again to the right. And so Malcolm was continuously close to the more radical wings in the global anti-colonial struggle. And then, he was very clear that it was these radical wings that will inspire and show the path to freedom for oppressed people in the West, and particularly African people in the USA. So he had to be killed. And so it's very significant to understand this detail around Malcolm. I mean, obviously, I've been a big admirer and fan of Malcolm since my early teens, but the longer you have and the more you don't sell out your core politics and the more time you have to reflect, the more some interesting things really come to the surface. So I think I think these things are important to keep in mind. Well, I'm interested to hear your reflections.